What's up, everyone? Jay Miller here, back with another Productivity in Tech podcast. This week, I have Mike Young on the line with us. Mike is a young CEO at Pear Circuit up in Fishers, Indiana. And if you don't know where Fishers, Indiana is, don't worry. By the end of this episode, you'll be very familiar with the Indiana coast. And I say that jokingly because for those that don't know, Indiana is in the middle of the U.S. It is about a 10-hour flight from the Silicon Valley, where most people are, and it's also another 4 or 5 hour flight from New York City, where the rest of the tech haven exists in the US. So it's interesting to have someone like Mike on the line because he has the ability to do so many great things, but at the same time, he has chosen to do all of those things from the place that he loves and knows, which is Fishers, Indiana. So it's really nice to be able to see that portrayed in this episode, and we talk a lot about Fishers. But enough about that, let's jump right into the conversation. Here it is with Mike Young. I'm sitting here with Mike Young from Pear Circuit. Mike, how are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you doing, Jay?
I'm doing great. You know, it's been a good week so far, and I'm, as we talked about a little bit beforehand, I've got some good interviews tonight, and I'm really looking forward to getting into them, and I'm looking forward to learning a little bit more about what you've got going on.
Well, awesome. I'm happy to tell you about it, and I'm really excited to be on the new season of Productivity in Tech. So it's going to be a really fun episode, I hope.
Absolutely. Let's start by having you introduce yourself, talking a little bit about what you do, and some of the awesome things you've got going on.
Sure. Well, I'm the CEO of, as you said, a company called Pear Circuit. We're located in Fishers, Indiana. So for those of you who don't know, that's very close to Indianapolis. And we've been doing development work with all kinds of different companies for 5, almost 6 years now. And what we do is partner with companies that this could be companies or nonprofits who have a really strong understanding of a market space or a problem, or have a really clear vision for how they want to change the world. And they know all the people, and they know all the pitfalls and all the possible solutions to whatever problem they're working on, but they don't really know a lot about technology. So what we do is we kind of come in, partner with them, and we provide a lot of expertise around software. So how do you design a minimally viable product? How do you go out and validate that you built the right thing? How do you know when you're writing too much code? And how do you maintain and build a really scalable code base? So you can kind of think of it as a partnership where we have a lot of technical knowledge, and we work with people who know all kinds of stuff about really important problems in spaces like healthcare, education, or civics. And we partner with them to help them change the world at a scalable level, in a way that uses a lot of really cool technology.
One of the often things that developers hear, especially people who freelance or work with other companies or parent companies, is I have the idea in my head. I just got to figure out how to get it onto, the screen. And with that, that's when you usually know, like, okay, now's the time to panic because that means they're going to have an opinion about every single thing that I do. How does it work when you are a company doing?
Yeah, so that's a good question. Well, oftentimes when people have a vision for what they want, they envision what the outcome that they want is going to be, but they may not have a clear picture of what they need to get there. They just have a preconceived notion. And so when we're working to build prototypes, or to take some designs that we have and translate them into an actual product, um, that's the first opportunity for other people to interact with it and provide feedback. And actually, it's intimidating, like you said, but it's actually very important to get that feedback. It's the most important part of building any piece of software, is having people interact with it and tell you if they liked it or they hated it or they were confused or they loved it. And so when you think about the resistance that we all have internally to going out and building something and subjecting it to feedback and criticism, that's probably the one impulse that is most important to overcome in our industry. Because without it, without that feedback and criticism, you have no idea if you are investing a ton of effort into something that doesn't actually achieve what your vision is in the real world.
So how is it working with so many companies that have a vision and you don't necessarily, well, I don't want to say you don't share their vision, but like their mission is not your mission. Your mission is to help them accomplish their mission. How does it feel knowing that like you're not directly connected to, I'm trying to find one. I'm on the website here, 700 Rivers. Like I've never heard of 700 Rivers. I don't know what they do. I'm sure when they reached out to you, they were like, "Hey, we're 700 Rivers. We do stuff." And you were like, "Oh, that's cool. Now here's how I can help you." How does that work?
Well, I don't think we've ever had a situation where we don't believe in the same vision that someone else is working on. At least as far as I can think back through our history. So I actually don't know how to answer that question because everyone that we've worked with has been working on something that's really cool that impacts a lot of people in a really positive way, and is very easy to get excited about because. First of all, the mission of a lot of these companies and organizations is something that we buy into on an intellectual level, but also just working with the people who are our customers has a second level of motivation because the passion and intensity that they have for all of the work that we're doing and that we're doing together kind of rubs off on you after a while. So I don't think we've ever had a situation where we haven't been fired up about something that we're trying to build. Um, and if that does happen in the future, I'm going to come back on this podcast and tell you how we were able to get over that hump. But we haven't dealt with that yet.
No, I like that answer, and that's something that companies that are, I will say, I'm trying to think of the word. Companies that are in it for the right reasons are doing is if you don't agree with what's happening. I don't know if you've seen this movie. It's ridiculous, but it's like Sorry to Bother You, and
That's the name of the movie.
the movie is called Sorry to Bother You. Yes,
I
it's
forgive you. Okay, yeah,
it's a
cool.
very strange movie. Um, and without going into too much detail, basically the guy works for a call center. He doesn't know what they're selling. He just knows that I need to sell more of it. And he starts coming up with all these tactics to sell more. And he finds out that as he becomes one of the better sellers in the company, they're working with like eco terrorists and arms dealers, and it
My
gets to a
God.
point. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely one of those situations where it's like it's taken to the extreme, but it gets to a point where like he's making so much money doing the thing that he doesn't agree with that he's just like, I what do I do? Do I just block this out? Do I just keep doing what I'm doing? Like what is happening here? And it winds up, again, it spirals out of control eventually. But it's good to hear that you're not going to be, building a better world for like arms dealers and like eco terrorists.
Yeah, we're not going to do that, and I don't think we ever will. At least not while I'm a part of the company. But yeah, we'll definitely try to avoid hanging out with the wrong crowd. We're really lucky in a lot of ways. I mean, first of all, we have an awesome team, and we have a really great industry that we're in. But we also have really great clients, and one of the things that is a nice benefit of the situation that we're in is we can turn down work if we feel like it's not a good fit. And that could be either we don't align with the mission of whoever we'd be working with, or that we don't have the technical skill set or the capacity to deal with that. And there have been a few instances where we said, hey, this is not a project we feel comfortable taking on, either because we're not sure if we're the right fit, or maybe it's not something that we feel super passionately about. And in those cases, we've made recommendations to other firms or said, here's some options. A lot of times, and now I'm sort of going on a tangent here, but you sparked something in my train of thought. But a lot of times, we're also asked to do development work for companies that do not need a software product or don't need development. Or they're too early to know if they do or not. And we've had situations where people are like, "How much does it cost to build this?" And we're like, "Can't really tell you because you don't really know what it's going to take to actually solve this problem. Does it require a native app? Does it require a web application? Are people solving it without software already? And maybe you never will need software to address this issue." Um, and so we've turned down contracts to go out and build products that while we would be happy to take the money, wouldn't be doing the customer any benefit, and it would be setting them up for failure, basically. So it's nice to be in that position because we get to pick projects we really believe in, but we can also pick projects that we think we're actually adding some value to the process, and that's been super rewarding for us because it makes us feel a lot better about what we do.
And I think that that is one of the things that is necessary for you to not feel burned out. People are told to, when you get your start in programming, you have to, work, and you may not have any investment in the work that you're doing. And I think that's a terrible way, like, to get started in any industry. Like, if I don't care about the job that I'm doing, I'm not going to do a good job.
Right.
And it's interesting that we still believe that that's okay to do in software development, where a lot of software engineers are considered some of the most brilliant people on the planet, but yet we're still foolish by saying, hey, sometimes you're going to have to, you know, I can't even think of a good example just because I've never tried to put myself in that situation where it's like, hey, you're going to have to, convert PHP code to Erlang or something.
Oh my
I
gosh.
don't know.
Usually it's the other way around, right? But yeah, I mean, I know what you mean. It's hard to learn anything that you're not passionate about, and you're not going to have success in that industry. I think we found from we're actually hiring right now, right? And so we've been pretty lucky to get a lot of applications, which has been great. But the thing that always stands out to us is I'll go look at somebody's like GitHub, for example. I'll look at their commit history and I'll see what they've worked on. Well, sometimes it's public, sometimes it's not. But the thing that matters the most to us is to just see like a really frequent recurring pattern of commits and activity. Like people are working like on Saturday on a personal project, that sort of thing. You can tell from a resume who's passionate about the position, but you can tell from like GitHub who's actually passionate about like learning new languages and like getting into development and working on all kinds of cool projects. And like that, I think is the key indicator for us on whether or not we're going to interview with someone. Is like not do they work on the weekends, right? But like do they enjoy what they're doing so much that they're spending their free time learning new things and working on cool projects.
Well, you've heard the scoop here that the Pair Circuit is hiring, because I just went on the job positions board to see what they had, and
Yeah,
it says nothing.
someone
So,
needs to talk to the CEO about that. Because that's a mistake. Yes, I'll send you a link, Jay, and if you want to put it out there, you can. If you're in Indiana and looking for a development job, we'd love to have you. And even if you're not, I'd still like to talk to you and convince you to move here, if nothing else.
that was something that I did write down, is that you're in Silicon
Yeah.
cornfield of Fishers, Indiana. Not necessarily in San Francisco or L.A. or New York, any of the normal tech centers. Why is Indiana the place for Pear Circuit and not one of these other areas?
Jay, you've asked like my favorite question ever. So when you think about, well, there's a couple different levels that you can answer that question. There's an economic reason, right? So companies that are on the coast are paying more for development because there's a higher cost of living associated with these major cities, and so their dollar doesn't go as far. And you see the effects of this. People are looking to outsource work to, let's say, India, for example. Well, if you're looking to build software, and one of your options is to outsource to India, and the other is to keep it in the United States, I think most companies based here in the U.S. Would want to take the U.S. route if they could make it work economically. And you know, why outsource something to India when you can outsource it to Indiana? For companies on the East Coast, we're in the same time zone. We're a 90-minute flight from Indianapolis to pretty much any major city. So we could even meet in person if necessary. We're governed by the same laws, but we're a lot cheaper. The cost of living in Indiana is very, very low compared to some of these major cities. San Francisco is much more expensive. So what that translates into is we can pay our employees in absolute dollars a little bit less than what they're making on the coast, but they actually take home more money in terms of what their dollars can buy. So they've better purchasing power. So that's the economic reason, right? But there's another reason, which is um, harder to quantify on paper, but I think more important. And it's that in Indy, we feel like we are a part of something that is bigger than what we are. I think if we were in a larger city like New York or San Francisco or even Chicago, we'd feel like just another company or group of developers, one of many, many fish in a big pond. And that's not to say that Indy is not a big city. I think we're the 11th largest city in the country. But we have access here just by asking people. We can go meet with. I've met with people who started. I've met with the CEO of a company called Exact Target, which was acquired, is now part of Salesforce. Back the downtown, the Salesforce Tower is now the tallest building in Indy. I've been able to talk to him. Like I've been able to meet with the former CEO of Angie's List, and all these other really cool companies. And the way I've been able to talk to them has been so cool. You could just reach out to someone on Twitter or ask a friend if they'd be willing to make an introduction. And like around here, everybody does that. And so these people who you might think you'd never have access to or be able to learn from in some of these other cities are very open here. And that I think is that whole community aspect of it is really powerful because it makes you feel like you're part of an ecosystem and that you matter here. And it's also a great opportunity to build something bigger. And so for me, that's like the real motivator. The economics is a nice side effect, but it's really the people I think that are the bigger asset for the state.
As someone who grew up in rural Tennessee and is now living in the city of in San Diego, it is definitely a different feeling. Some would say it's slower, but I think that it's kinder. It's more intentional. People are doing the things that they want to do. They are doing the things that they enjoy doing, whether it's keeping the family tradition going. I don't know of any locations in where we live that were passed down from father to son, other than even the company at my day job. That's a company that they started out in like rural Utah, and they were in the founder was in the military, and during World War II got out of the military, was stationed in San Diego, and said, you know what, I'm going to start a life here. And they've kept a lot of those family values and a lot of that approachability to their company. And I think that's something that you don't necessarily get in a Bay Area or in a large metropolitan, because one, everybody is traveling to the metropolitan. There are very few people that are originally from the
Yeah, good point.
metropolitan. So and there's a lot of distance, just personally, and a lot of things that come with that too. My commute to work is like almost, it can be up to an hour and a half if
Wow.
traffic is bad, and that is something that, it would take me an hour and a half to go from like one
Yeah.
city to the next in Tennessee. Like I could get from
Yeah.
Knoxville to Chattanooga in an
Exactly.
hour and a half. Whereas here it's like, oh, you've got to go 15 miles. Well, have fun sitting in gridlock. Like,
Yeah. Wow. That's Yeah, you're making me happier that we didn't move out there because I India is an automobile city, and we love our cars, and we don't drive around on the beltway. We try to qualify and see who can go the fastest, so we can qualify for the 500 around 465, which is our like beltway. So we like driving, but we do not like sitting in traffic. I don't think anybody really does. But I'm very happy. As much as I like cars and the 500, I don't want to spend an hour and a half in one every day. So that's one way I think you said. So yeah, yeah, pretty happy about that.
definitely. And one of the cool things that I would see as well as, we don't necessarily need more people in these Bay Areas. Like,
Yeah. Well, hey, send them here. We can. There's work for them, and not only that, there's their like I said, their dollars go further. And they can work on real problems that impact a lot of people in a really serious and substantive way, and they can earn more doing it in terms of real purchasing power. So send them over.
it's an indie shop working out
Yeah.
of Indy, looking for any indie developers to
Yeah.
any
Yeah.
indie developers.
Yeah.
So
So this is actually this is not a paid advertisement, but the state of Indiana has hijacked this podcast. I'm sorry.
I like it. Hey, if the state of Indiana has the funds and they want to sponsor us, that's fine. I'll
I
take a
can't speak
visit.
on
You
behalf
know,
of anyone official, but maybe one day we'll see.
well, and we've had plenty of conversations before in the past regarding some of this stuff, and that was one of the reasons why I wanted to have you onto the show. Is you can tell, like, when you have the guy on like 4 months ago that's tweeting out, "Hey, I finally got my business license. I'm gonna get this thing going, and I'm gonna do it right." Like that, and like the fact that you just jumped in and was like, "Hey, man, if you need any help, let me know." And I was like, "Okay." Like I don't necessarily know what that is, but as soon as I figure it out, I'll tell you.
Yeah, I'm. You know, it's funny. I'm not even sure how I first found out about you. I may have followed you by accident. I do that sometimes. But I saw you tweeted that, and I was like, dude, I'm starting a company too. Like, good luck. Let me know if I can help. And yeah, here we are. Pretty funny.
So that is a lesson to anyone listening. Just randomly follow people, even if it's by accident. You never know who you'll find in there. You'll find like the CEO of Pear Circuit, and he'll try to get you to move to Indiana. Which I mean, I have some relatives that live in Michigan. I mean, I'm sure my wife wouldn't be too upset with that, but at the same time, I don't know. It's kind of cold up there.
Oh yeah, well yeah, the weather is not our best asset, but I will if I'm not kidding about this. If you want a job in Indiana, I will find a way to get you here because that's something that uh, we're all really pulling together for is how do we make the state a better place to live and work, and part of doing that is finding people who are the best people in the world at what they do and bringing them here. So yeah,
Here's the last question. So you've mentioned having this trouble working in Aurora, and I'm pretty sure this is going to be the, like, let's learn a little bit
sure.
about Indiana podcast now. So you definitely would have, there's not 1,000 people like knocking at your door saying like, oh hey, I just graduated from Stanford and now I'm looking for an internship. How has it been not only starting a new company, but a company with such a strong vision that requires so much? Because, I mean, you don't know what your clients are going to require until you're in the thick of it. But then at the end of it, it's like, okay, I might need someone who knows, or at least has the ability to learn Scala, JavaScript, and Ruby on Rails, and how has it been trying to find people in a non tech haven that are capable of accomplishing that thing? And what are some of the things that you've done to do that, other than coming on podcasts and pimping
Yeah,
out your state?
seriously. So that's a really good question, and I don't have the answer to that question all the way figured out. I've got some theories, and we're doing some experiments to find out what the answer could be, but I don't really know for sure what the answer is yet. I would say that in this state and in any state, there are tons of people who are super smart and super motivated, and I don't think it's a problem where we lack ability um, or interest. Really, it's just that around here you have to do a better job of maybe communicating what it is you're looking for, and also communicating to people um, who are talented and are being pulled in 1,000 different directions by all these companies that want to hire them, why they should work for you. So I kind of view it as a burden on the employer or an obligation on the employer to articulate, like, why would you want to work here and what would be rewarding beyond just a paycheck, uh, and making that case to the people who've got the potential to actually do the work. I've been amazed at the quality of students that are coming out of not just uh, our colleges, because we do have some great schools here, but also some of the non-traditional or sort of apprenticeship like learning programs that are starting to pop up and become more common. And in fact, our first hire was actually a guy who did this program called Free Code Camp, and I think he started out as a student, and by the end was actually writing codes and modules and tests for the actual courses. So I was a guy who lived in Indiana and didn't go to school for that, but was just super smart, like crazy smart, and super passionate and taught himself. So to kind of sum up and answer your question, the people who are capable of doing this work live in this state and around it. And it's really more a challenge for businesses to differentiate why would that person want to work for you. And like I said, I don't think we have the perfect answer, but I'm trying to make the case, and I think successfully so far. Um, I hope that our company is one of the places where you can work and you can have a really positive impact on a lot of people very quickly. And so I think if we can continue to tell that story, we'll keep finding people who can come in and fill those roles because the potential is definitely.
I love that answer, and in fact, I loved it so much it made me think of another quick question. If we'll
Yes.
answer this in about 15 seconds, and after that, I promise you, after show. But that being said, what would you say to the developer that isn't in the Bay Area, that is sitting in, where I grew up in Sweetwater, Tennessee, or Macon, Georgia, or Fishers, Indiana? What would you say to them when they want to be a developer, but everybody is telling them, oh, you got to move to New York City. Oh, you got to move to, Los Angeles or San Francisco if you want to do it. And they love where they're from. They love the things that keep them in that area. What would you say to them when they're looking for that job?
Well, I think if you love where you live, then you have a duty to that place to make it the best place that you can make it. And I also think that sometimes, especially if you're in the Midwest, we may have this attitude that it's maybe if we're lucky, we can make the next Facebook or the next Twitter. And we can go work on that in California and we'll own some equity and somebody else will run it, but we can be a part of that. And I would say you need to switch your mindset and not think about how you can be a part of the next Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn or whatever big tech company there is out there, but instead start to think about how you could make the people at those companies wish that they were the first you and what you're building. Because you can build it where you live, you can build it with the people around you who love the state that you're in as much as you do. And you can, it's achievable. And you've got certain advantages where you live that people in other cities don't have, and you should take advantage of that. I know we're doing it here in Indianapolis. Other cities have different benefits and different drawbacks, and so um, you've got an opportunity and you should seize it because you've got an obligation to the people who live where you do to try to make your state or your city the best place it can possibly be.
You've been listening to my conversation with Mike Young. Definitely someone who loves the area that he grew up in and is really wanting to see it continue to grow. And like I said, just because you are in a small town doesn't mean that you have to have aspirations of leaving that town to pursue better things. And again, take that from someone who has done just that. And there are many a night where I actually miss the small town feel, the pace, the friendliness, and it's great to see that people like Mike are out there that are really pushing to get more and more people into those areas. So like he said, Paracircuit is hiring. So if you're a developer and you are in the Indiana area and especially in the Indianapolis area, or if you are open to relocating to that area, then give Mike a ring. He's very open and honest, and he will tell you like it is. And I think that's great. And I love the mission that they have to help other businesses succeed. And I think that's why I ultimately wanted him on the show. So that's going to do it for this week. Thanks to Nadir Omawale for his track, A Hustler, in spite of myself, for the intro and outro music. Thank you again to Mike for being such an awesome guest on the show. But that's going to do it for this week. I am Jay Miller. I hope we have been productive. And until next time, I'll see you later.